All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the last video with Russ. In this video, he's gonna cover content for cold traffic campaigns.
All right, what's up, everybody? Let's talk about content that engages your cold audiences and turns them into leads. So there are two types of content you're going to need to convert cold audiences into warm prospects. Remember, we talked about that sort of left turn in the customer journey and how critical it is to learn how to convert cold audiences into warm prospects. So the two types of content that you're going to need in this stage are ungated content. So content that does not require payment or contact information to gain access. These are things like blog posts and videos, right? You don't need to give someone money or contact information to read your articles or watch videos. But then you're going to need something called gated content. And this is that piece that's going to make that transition from, okay, I haven't really given you anything. I've been reading your stuff or listening to your stuff or watching your stuff or whatever it is. And now I'm ready to sort of take this to the next level. And that's where you're going to transition them from free and ungated content to gated content, content that does require contact information to gain access. And we're going to talk about those two types of content. Now, we're going to start with this ungated content. So 3 common types that we'll be looking at are articles, videos, and podcasts. So on the right here, you can see a piece of content from Office Vibe. They do a great job of especially cold traffic content marketing or ungated content marketing. So this is a big, long, sort of complete guide to employee feedback. So Office Vibe, works with you on, they're a piece of software that allows you to kind of get the vibe of the office. Big shocker there, right? But this is a great piece of cold traffic content that they can drive people in that are just wondering, what is employee feedback and how do I make it, more effective inside of my office? So this is an article that's just freely available and ungated. Then you have things like videos. This company Quickcrete, who's been around forever, right? They make, sort of quick setting concrete. And here's a great video from them on YouTube on how to build a paver patio. And of course, their product is needed or recommended when doing this project. And then you have things like podcasts, right? It doesn't cost you anything necessarily to get access to Digital Marketer's perpetual traffic podcast, but this is become one of the most effective ways that we reach new cold audiences is through the perpetual traffic podcast that Molly and Keith and Ralph run. So just to sort of set the stage, I wanted to show you some different examples of content that other companies are using when they're just trying to get people sort of engaged, right? Like you kind of know who we are, maybe you've seen an ad from us, and now you're experiencing the brand, you're experiencing the company through a piece of ungated content. So there's really 4 steps to creating ungated content that converts. Now you can create ungated content that isn't necessarily set up for conversion, and that's okay. Sometimes you're going to build a piece that you're just like, I just think this provides tremendous value in advance of the sale, and so I'm just going to produce this podcast or this article or this video. But you should be also creating things that are absolutely designed to make this transition from cold to warm or cold even straight to hot traffic, right? Where they've become a buyer and a customer of yours. So what you want to do is you don't have to absolutely follow this process for every piece of ungated content, every article or video or whatever that you do. But anything that you really want to make sure that this is designed to move someone to the next stage of the customer journey, you should be following this set of steps. So in this 4 steps, the first thing you want to do is begin at the end. And I'll explain all of these as I go. Then you're going to choose the topic of that piece of ungated content. You're going to edit it for consumption, and then you're going to give it some teeth. So step 1, begin with the end. What you want to do is begin with the action that you desire from the person consuming that content. So whoever's reading that article or watching that video, listening to that podcast, what do you ultimately want them to do? So before you've even decided what it's about, before you've even decided what it's about, you must know what the end result is that you want them to take. Do you want them to download something? Do you want them to just leave having become aware of something, right? So what are some different things that you might want them to do? One of them is offer awareness, right? So you just might want them to, after they're done listening to this podcast, they know that Digital Marketer offers workshops, or Digital Marketer offers Digital Marketer Lab, or whatever it is that you want them to become aware of. You want that could be the desired action that you want. So you might want them to download something or give you their contact information. In other words, you want leads out of this. So you need to start with an understanding of, okay, I want leads out of this. Now let's work backwards from there to figure out what this content needs to be. You might want direct sales, right? More difficult to do from ungated content, which is why we sort of have that middle path of, going to a piece of gated content. But sales are definitely possible direct from ungated content. So big idea here is that you don't, it is possible to start with the topic and then sort of force the desired action into that piece that you've already created. That is definitely possible and doable, and something that we do here at Digital Marketer. We'll take a piece that we created 2 years ago and add a desired action to it that we want the reader to take or whatever. But when we are really designing content for conversion, we want to start with the end. We want to start with what we want them to do last. I can't stress that more, because then you're going to move in and choose the topic. So it's going to be the action that you want them to take that's going to help you choose the perfect topic. So now that you know what the action is, what you want to do is answer these 3 questions, and this will help you determine what that content needs to be. Question 1, what does the prospect need to believe, learn, or know before they will take that desired action? Question 2, what barriers must this prospect overcome before they will take this desired action? And question 3, what is this prospect researching before they take the desired action? In other words, what conversations are already going on in their mind? So let's look at some examples here. Let's say we sell equipment to marathon runners. So we sell physical equipment, or we could even sell information products to people that are running marathons. So we determine that the prospect needs to believe that, first of all, they can run a marathon, right? So remember, we asked some questions. What do they need to believe? What do they need to understand? Well, the first thing they need to believe is that they can run a marathon. They have the ability to run a marathon. So this article here, titled, "Are You Ready to Run a Marathon?" is a great piece, right? This is a really, really great piece if ultimately we need them to believe that they can run a marathon, right? Because some people will read that and say, you know what, I'm not. But others are going to leave that article saying, you know what, I believe I am ready to run a marathon, and so therefore I need some marathon equipment or marathon products that teach me how to run a marathon. But before, if you understand that downstream of anybody needing your marathon running equipment, whether it's shoes or, wearable tech or whatever it is that you sell around or to people that run marathons, the first thing you're going to need to do is from cold traffic audiences is be able to convince them that they are able to run that marathon. And so you need this article, and you can force eyeballs on it using the methods that Molly is teaching you to drive traffic to this piece and then move them forward. So what if we realize that one of the barriers here, by answering our 3 questions, we realize there's a barrier. And that barrier is that it takes a lot of time to train to run a marathon. And so we've got to overcome that barrier if we're going to sell people equipment or information products around marathon running. So this article, How to Run a Marathon with Almost No Training. That's a really great headline that would attract somebody that's like, I would love to do that. I just don't have the time. So you're overcoming a barrier here with this piece of ungated content. And obviously these are all articles, but these could be videos or podcasts or even infographics or whatever you want them to be, as long as they are ungated, right? They're freely available and you can drive traffic to them from, traffic channels like Facebook ads. So how about if we determine that the prospect is researching the equipment they need to run a marathon? That's a really good scenario for you if you sell equipment. So great article headline here, 10 must-haves for marathon runners. Right? You might want to be a little more specific there if you sell equipment. 10 pieces of must-have equipment for marathon runners or something like that. But that very clearly reaches out to somebody that's like, I'm in research mode, right? I'm in research mode and I'm thinking of running a marathon. I don't know what equipment I need. This is a great piece of ungated, freely available content that you can use in your traffic campaigns to drive cold audiences in and then, do your thing, which is what Molly will teach you, and I'll cover a little bit as we go along here as well. Step 3. So once you've decided what your piece needs to be and you've created it, you really, really must not skip step 3, which is to edit for consumption. Because the truth is that you can drive traffic and pay for that traffic to get to your piece, but that you cannot make them stay and consume it. Like, you cannot make them watch the video. You cannot make them listen to the podcast or read through the article using your ad platform. Your ad platform can get them there, and it will get them there. Like Molly talked about. Paid traffic is a water hose. You will drive traffic. This is not rain that you're just hoping and praying that someone will come to your article. People will come. The question is, will they like your headline? Will they stick around and consume it? And if they don't, they really don't get the piece that's so important, which is this value in advance, this sort of indoctrination to you. So we're going to look at 4 critical elements that you must edit after you're done producing your piece. Whether you have a writer created or a videographer or you create it yourself, you want to run through and make sure the headline, the introduction, the transitions, and the formatting are edited for consumption. So the headline should be clear and not cute. So save your cutesy headline for your status updates with your friends on Facebook, because what we find time and time again is that cutesy headlines don't often work. They can work and they can work really well, but most of the time they fail. It's better to just simply be clear with your headline, like this one is. 10 must-haves for marathon runners. This is not a cutesy headline. It's literally just states the benefit of opening up and reading that. So it should be complete but not wordy. So you should always edit your headlines, to remove as many words as you can while still keeping the same strength, if you will. But it certainly should not be wordy. In your headline, it should be as tight as possible, and then compelling but not hypey. So this headline here is almost hypey, right? If they wouldn't have put the almost in there, it's really hypey. How to run a marathon with no training seems really, really hypey to me. But how to run a marathon with almost no training, very compelling, bordering on hypey, I would think. But sort of a gray area there that you can decide what you want. But you really need to be thinking about your headline because it will be used in your ad copy. It's the first thing the person sees when they hit the page, and they won't go diving into your copy until they like the headline. So what you want to do is use a headline swipe file. As you can see here, this is ours, and it has just a number of proven headlines that work. And until you get the hang of it, of writing headlines yourself, just use a swipe file, and really use a swipe file any time, because the headline is just that important. To spend some time thinking through, like, what should my headline be? What should it look like? And it's great to use formulas. So the job of the headline, though, is to get that first sentence read. And the job of the first sentence in any copy is to get the second sentence read, etc. So your first sentence is critical. It really is. It has to be something that literally pulls them into the copy, because what you want to understand, and this doesn't just have to do with written articles. This could be videos or podcasts as well. You need to script the opening of really any piece of ungated content that you're really hoping will convert. Because if you don't think through the opening, remember that you have to get somebody that is in a resting pace, right? They're sitting still to start moving through your copy or your video or your podcast or whatever it is. They have to get into motion. And in order for them to do that, you want to just kind of get them rolling, because the only way to get them rolling is going to be nice and slow, and then they're going to start picking up speed as they get more and more interested in what you're talking about. So make that first sentence and first few sentences very short and punchy and curiosity-based. Think daggers, right? Like you want to be throwing daggers with your first sentences that pull them into the copy or pull them into the video. So on the right there, you see an article that I wrote on content marketing, and in the very first, sentence is only 4 words, and it starts with, "Here's the big misconception." So misconception, right? I'm already setting sort of a hook, right? That there's some kind of problem, right? And that's kind of curiosity inducing, right? It's like, well, what is the big? So if you liked my headline and you read that first sentence, it's really not possible for you not to read the next part of this, right? Because it's like, okay, I like the headline. Okay, the first sentence is 4 words with an ellipsis at the end. Okay. Ellipsis optional, everybody, but that essentially establishes curiosity, right? Like, here's the big misconception that content marketing equals blogging. The truth is, and then it just starts rolling from there. And I'm trying to get that person moving through the copy. So really important to script your intro, whether you're doing videos, podcasts, or articles. Script them in a way that's short, that's punchy, that helps them understand the benefit and grabs a little bit of curiosity. So transitions are another really, really important part of this. Transitions are stop signs, y'all. So what they do is they say, okay, this part's over. We're going to move on to another part. And it's a natural place for people to exit your piece, whether it's in a video, again, a podcast. You've got to be careful with your transitions and smooth them out so that they move from one stage to the next. So look at this article on the left. It's just a little cross-section of an article. And it says at the top there, can you double one of them to 2 of them, even 3 of them? Absolutely. In other words, there are 4 levers you have available to grow your business. Then I go through the 4 levers. And then it's like, let's look at each growth lever in turn. And then it transitions to a subheadline. So that transition was thought through, right? And this is something that usually happens in editing at the end where you're like, that's not a very smooth transition. I need a better transition from here to here. And again, there might be articles where you're like, I'm not going to spend the time on that. But when you're writing a piece that you really are hoping is going to be converting for you, spend time on those transitions. You can also see here on the right, there's another example of a good smoothed out transition. Formatting is your best friend. So use all of the following to make content consumable: bullets, numbered lists, line breaks, block quotes. So this is pretty specific to the written word, written articles and things. But I'll tell you, you also need to use formatting even in your videos and podcasts, right? Things that signpost changes from one to the next, right? So things like in videos, holding up the number 2 when you move on to the second point in your conversation, but really signposting and almost making video formatting that allows people to understand that you're shifting from one thing to the next, right? And you're breaking this content up. So if you look over there on the right, I make this analogy that if you take your copy and you flip it and you just flip it 90 degrees, and look at the mountains and sort of valleys in your copy. What you need to understand is that the first thing you're asking your reader to do, signified by that little bicycle rider, the first thing you're asking your reader to do is to go from a resting motion, right? And so what's that first mountain look like, that they've got to ride up, right? Because they're going to have to go up to start, right? They're going to have to go up because they're in a resting pace, right? They're sitting still, and now they got to get into your copy, right? And so you can see how this piece lays out in a way that doesn't look intimidating at all, right? It looks pretty approachable if you're sitting there and on that bicycle getting ready to ride into the mountains. So look at your copy, tilt it 90 degrees and look at it and see whether you see like big sort of formidable, intimidating looking parts of your copy, and smooth those out, shorten them, use bullets, right? Use line breaks, use numbered lists or bulleted lists, block quotes, things to break that up. And certainly don't create giant mountains of copy right at the beginning of a piece. Last step, give this ungated content some teeth. All right, so many people create ungated content that has no bite to it, right? So all your articles, videos, podcasts really need to have some kind of a business purpose. That doesn't mean you can't occasionally just create a piece that's like, okay, like this is just a piece that I'm creating and I'm going to put it out there. But what you really should be doing is most of the time producing content that you are able to set pixels, right? So Molly's going to be talking about this in this class, how to set a pixel. In other words, an identifier that tells you that someone was on this piece of ungated content. Somebody read this article, watched this video, right? Listened to this audio, right? Whatever it is, you want to be able to set a pixel there and say, I want to categorize this person as someone that has read the article about, running a marathon, whether or not they're ready to run a marathon. And then you want to be able to retarget them with a relevant offer. And then the second thing is you want to make a relevant call to action from within the content, right? So make a relevant offer, whether it's more content or literally something to buy or opt into from within the content. So here's what this looks like. On the left is one of our properties called Survival Life. We're talking about 36 paracord projects for preppers. And then we have a paracord bracelet available at the bottom there, as an offer from within that content. It's almost like a billboard hanging inside of this article. And then on the right, you have digital marketer, and you have a couple of offers in there, some more content, and things that we're selling right inside of the content. So that's how you give your content teeth, is you make relevant offers inside of there, right? So as relevant as you possibly can. Hang the right billboard inside of, the right and give it to the right audience based on what they're doing, what they're reading, what they're listening to. And then the second thing is you want to be setting pixels, as Molly will teach you in here, and retargeting people based on what it is they're consuming, making the right offer once again to the person based on what they're reading or listening to. In the next video, I'm going to go into 3 common types of gated content. So we're going to move on from ungated content like blog posts and articles and videos and get into gated content. We'll see you there.